Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men, that's X-Men Volume 2, number 32, cover dated May 1994. So the cover here speaks for itself, extremely dynamic, really great, one of Andy Kubert's best covers on the title, featuring Spiral versus a fighting mad Psylocke, and inked by Matthew Ryan. And a nice little detail here with Spiral is you got to pay attention to who she is, that she's from Mojo World, and therefore has those 3 fingers on her hands rather than 4. So Andy Kubert paying attention to that little detail of Spiral's character and nature. So let's open this one up. This is part 2 of a 2-part story. Soul Possessions is the name of it. And this picks up immediately from the end of the previous issue, where Spiral appeared in a tree after a car crash with Psylocke and Warren Worthington Archangel. So Spiral says that you seek the truth, Psylocke, to find out how your mind and body and that of the ninja known as Kwannon were merged and created anew. That is why I've spun a dance of time and space across the dimensions to come and tell you, and to absolve myself perhaps of the culpability of my role in this affair. So Warren is straight into Archangel mode. Imogen Juicer goes off. The wings come out and shred his suit. Great anchor image here of Spiral again. I love this little angle on her face, the profile of her face. It's almost at a 3/4 degree angle. Really nicely done by Andy Kubert. And in fact, I want to from the start praise Andy Kubert's art in this issue, the previous issue and this issue. Really great work by him, and I begin to see little changes and improvements in his style, moving away from some of the scratchier, boxier style that he had when he first came on the title, and some of that getting smoothed out in the art in this particular issue. So then we've got to turn this one to the side here. We've got a great image of Psylocke striking at Spiral, so we get to see that from behind Spiral's head, and Spiral parries her attack though. So the creative team here, Fabian Nicieza, writer, Andy Kubert and Matt Ryan, artists, so Andy Kubert pencils, Matt Ryan inks, Bill Oakley letterer, and then Kevin Summers and Digital Chameleon colorist. So Digital Chameleon is responsible, it's the studio responsible for the digital separation of the computer colors. So again, this is the 2nd issue with explicit use of computer coloring, and it looks very well in this particular issue. I had some criticisms of the computer color in the previous issue, but not this one. And the title of this particular part of the 2-part storyline is The Leopards and the Cats. And the leopards, of course, never change their spots. So let's continue with the story. Great anchor image here of Archangel. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that I see little developments in Kubert's art moving towards the direction that he would go in subsequent issues of the title. Kind of a more rounded look to the way that he's rendering faces here. Great use of blacks on the face, but just kind of the rendering of the flesh is not so boxy and not so scratchy as in previous issues, and even the rendering of the mouth and the teeth here, a little bit more organic. That's what I want to say. Like, there's more of an organic line, more of a sense of organic flesh on the face rather than that kind of boxy geometric look that you get very much in his earlier issues on the title. So Psylocke here wounded slightly. Warren shoots his wing tips at Spiral, and he makes the point, my wing blades have a neuro-paralyzing agent in them which should slow you down long enough to put an end to this, and it looks like he means it in that panel. So Psylocke's not down entirely. She picks up a couple of katana blades and runs at Spiral, but Spiral just is too much for her. Well, she's got 6 arms, yes. So she flings Psylocke away, but Psylocke is grabbed by Archangel. And then who comes to the rescue except for Rogue? Great anchor image here of Rogue punching out Spiral. And I like the dialogue here and like the onomatopoeic words, ouch, that was a good shot, Rogue. So that's pretty fun. And I like the body language here on Spiral as well. That look of her face too, really nicely rendered. And the way that he's rendering the upshot of the nose and the eyes, Rogue's eyes here, he's developed some new ciphers in this issue. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm going to point that out again for Rogue. He's come around to a specific way of drawing her eyes and her physiognomy that distinguishes her from someone like, for example, Psylocke. So he's beginning to get a handle on some individual aspects of the physiognomy of the characters to differentiate them, which is pretty cool. And then Rogue isn't alone, who turns up as well, except for the Beast, and he pulls off Spiral's helmet, which renders her defenseless when it comes to this bow staff. Who could that be? Of course, it will turn out to be Gambit. Bang, you dead. So that's a classic Claremont line for Gambit, and I like the way that Nicieza has reprised that for this appearance of Gambit. And then the Beast basically says here, and I like the alliteration too, now Spiral, perhaps you would rather talk this out than persist in the perpetuation of pointless pugilistic pugnacity. So he's delighted with his own alliteration there. Nice shot of him hanging upside down with Spiral's helmet. Great anchor image here of the team facing off against Spiral. I like the rendering. I like the spotting of blacks and the rendering of shadow on her 6 arms here. Looks really great. Now, I will, having made all of those compliments of Kubert, I will criticize this because it makes it look as if she's shrunk down to kind of Tinkerbell size. But there is a panel break here, but it's obscured by the lettering. So it kind of like, it throws you when you look at it. First of all, it looks as if she shrunk down to the size of a fairy like Tinkerbell. But anyway, Spiral says, although it's taken me months to realign the wavelength signals after we lost the original transmission from our optic implants in this world. So that would have been from when Betsy went through the Siege Perilous and appeared then in the East Asian Ocean to be picked up by the Hand. That's what she's referring to. That's when the broadcast was... hold on a second. Actually, no, it would have been before that. I have to correct myself here. It would have been from the point that Roma cast her spell after the X-Men died in Dallas. That's what she's referring to. So that's kind of weird because it means that everything from Fall of the Mutants to this point took place in a number of months. Unless months work differently on Mojo World, maybe that's my no prize explanation for how there could have been so much packed into a few months. Doesn't seem quite right. But in any case, Psylocke is perturbed, she says. And what's that? You've done nothing but confuse me about my identity, even more than I already was. What's Spiral accomplished? This is a great couple of pages here. Excellent work. Whoops. Gotta reattach my microphone. That hasn't happened in a while. Excellent work here by Andy Kubert on these 2 pages. This is a tremendous anchor image here of Gambit taking off his coat and putting it on. Psylocke, great shot of Rogue here. Beast 2, really great work on this page. Also excellent Spiral here. Spotting of blacks too again. The play of light and shade on the character, really nicely done. But Spiral spins away back to Mojo World with a riddle where she says, I've provided you the answers to your questions, Elizabeth Braddock, and it's your choice and yours alone if you refuse to see the forest for the trees. Our game is over, and whether you realize it or not, it has served its purpose. For that, mutant, you should thank me. And, you know, Psylocke doesn't get it. She says, "Don't time dance your way out of this one, witch. Your foolish little riddles haven't helped me at all." And Spiral says, just as she winks out of their dimension, "Your choice, Psylocke, your pain. If you take all the eyes you've been given and still choose to remain blind, how am I to blame?" So this is the point where she comes to realization. The secrets to what truly happened to her could be contained in Kwannon's bionic eyes, which were left her as a gift in the previous issue. So Warren retrieves them from the car. He says, "There's something Revanche left behind when she vanished last night. These biotechnic eyes that were implanted in Beth's original body months ago by Spiral herself. Apparently, they were used by Spiral and Mojo to spy on us." That goes back to New Mutants Annual number 2, using Betsy's own artificial vision as peepholes into our dimension. So, this plot point, introduced by Claremont, getting finally exposed here. And so we turn to hours later inside the X-Mansion, where Beast and Banshee are working away on the eyes, and their hope is that these units were used for recording visual input as well as transmitting it back to Mojo World. That's the point that Banshee makes. Great art. I really love this image here of the pair working away on the eyes. Just Beast with his tongue sticking out the side of his mouth, and just again the spotting of blacks, the play of light and shadow on this, and the computer coloring really complementing and augmenting the work here. And also the muting of the images on the screen, much better done in this issue than the previous issue. So again, probably looking at the way it came out in print, probably led to some adjustments in terms of that muting effect, and it just works much better here. Also on Beast's protective goggles here, and the little reflection of Psylocke's face on one side of his goggles. They're really good, really great attention to detail. Lots and lots of work on these pages from Andy Kubert, not scrimping on the art in any way, shape or form. So they do hack into the eyes. They do contain recordings of what Betsy was able to see through them. And here we go back to the world of Uncanny X-Men 255 and 256 with Matsuo Tsurayaba and the Mandarin. So Tsurayaba says, "She was found washed up on the island shore, invisible to our senses with no memory of who she was." That's back issue 255. And so the point is made as to whether Betsy wants people to be present when these memories are played back in the recording, and she says that she's hidden enough from her friends as it is, and she would prefer to learn everything she can, no matter how painful, in the company of people she cares about. So this is really putting to bed that whole kind of question, that whole mystery going back to issues 20 to 23 of the title, as to whether Asian Psylocke was an imposter, a traitor, whether she really was one of the X-Men. And here we're having like a complete resolution to all of that doubt in this issue. So then we get to see what went on in the flotation tank, and how it's revealed that Kwannon always was always an intuitive empath, displaying at times low-level telepathic abilities. So that's part of the puzzle as to how it was hoped that Kwannon's mind could be transplanted, could be communicated into British Psylocke's body, and that maybe her mind could be healed there. That's how it's done. So this, remember, is Kwannon here, and they're trying to get her mind out of this brain damaged body. And the bargain with Mandarin is that he can have Kwannon as a new assassin, and he's asking Tsurayaba here, what makes you think her injured physical form can handle the strain, because she nearly drowned, or in effect did drown, and was brain damaged in the previous issue, in the flashbacks in the previous issue. And he says here, I've made other arrangements to deal with that part of the situation, my lord. And it is the deal that he strikes with Spiral that he's referring to. And Psylocke gets it. Spiral, he means Spiral. Matsuo cut a deal with that witch in order to ensure that she would heal this body. That's Kwannon's body here. And Hank picks up on it. He says, which explains quite a lot about your cross-biological traits, Elizabeth. Spiral more than switched minds. She manipulated genetic coding between the two of you. And that is the reason why Wolverine couldn't tell the difference between the pair back in issue 21. So it's also explanation for the fever dream she had in issue 256, the presence of Spiral and Mojo. And then we're continuing to see the recording from the eyes, where here is Spiral, and she's basically saying that the game is afoot, and my master Mojo, bulbous waste of flesh that he is, will simply lie back and watch you all play a game. What are you talking about? So the game that Spiral plays is that she mixes not just the genetics of the pair, but also their minds. So there's a little bit of Kwannon in Psylocke's mind and vice versa. So that is the game that Spiral played, and maybe what she was hoping to, in her perverse way, atone for her culpability in that by letting Psylocke know the truth via the recordings in the bionic eyes. So Psylocke decides that she is going to go to Japan to tie up some loose ends. And here Gambit is offering her a ride on his Harley to the airport, but she says, no, I like this line, it's funny. Thank you, Remy, but I've had my anxiety attack for the day. And then Professor X emerges onto the porch as Betsy's leaving. And he says, I feel as if we should stand by your side, Elizabeth. Betsy says as she walks to the car, taking her to the airport, in spirit, Charles, you will be, but in many ways I started all this by myself, and I need to end it that way as well. Because remember, it was her decision to push the X-Men through the Siege Perilous, and also go through herself to escape the Reavers back in the outback in Australia. So she speaks true here. And so Warren's going to drive her to the airport. And Gambit says, well, take better care of this car, than you did with the last one that they crashed. And take care of yourself too while you're at it, because Gambit's got a good heart after all. And this is a funny little scene between Professor X and Gambit. And I like the top-down, three-quarter profile shot here. Difficult to draw this with the perspective required, but Kubert doing it really well. And a great angle on Gambit here. And also a good kind of command of a particular body language, where Gambit does like to kind of stand with his hand on his hip like that. He's smoking out on the porch, and so it turns out that what happened in the previous issue when Professor X asked to make the Beast, Hank McCoy, be responsible for the mansion itself and the Blue Team, Beast has banned smoking in the mansion. So Gambit here is saying, you made McCoy in charge, remember, and I can't even smoke in my own room. I feel like I'm a kid again. And Professor X says, well, it's a filthy habit nonetheless. For as dangerous a life as we lead, why add to the risk? Funny, says Gambit as he smiles. That's what Rogue said before, and he stops. And Belladonna always used to say too. Is everything all right, Remy? Asks Professor. And this is interesting. Gambit says, hey Professor, can we talk? I know we don't know each other well. I thought you preferred to keep to yourself, Gambit, says the Professor. Maybe so, maybe no. But I need to talk now about my wife and Rogue, and about what happened down in New Orleans. So Professor X says, yes, come up to the study where it's warm to talk. Oh, and Remy, yeah. Would you please pick up that cigarette and properly dispose of it that he stubbed out with his toe on the porch? So he says, guess I still am a kid at heart, eh? That's pretty good. I like that scene. And here we're into the last act of the comic. We're in Japan, at the estate of Nwaren Hinecha. So that's Lord Nwaren. And great work on this page. Great rendering of those Japanese architectural buildings and ornamentation with the dragon here by Andy Kubert. Psylocke stealthily entering Nwaren's estate, making her way into the crime lord's study, and says to him, Nwaren, I've come to speak with you, my friend. Nwaren, do you hear? But he's dead. Okay, so what's happened to him? Well, it turns out that Matsuo Tsurayaba is there too, and he's killed him. And so Psylocke follows him out of Nwaren's house to the cliff's edge, and she asks him, why did you kill Nwaren? And Matsuo Tsurayaba says, he lied to us all. Since he could not have Kwannon's love, he chose to destroy any chance for me to experience it again. So that's the retcon from the previous issue, that Matsuo Tsurayaba was Kwannon's lover. And here we get more from him, where he says, because of the oxygen deprivation Kwannon suffered after a fall, spiral switching of your minds and bodies was incomplete. Since Kwannon's mind was damaged when Spiral delivered her to Nwaren, Elizabeth, she was essentially a blank slate, a tabula rasa. He chose to use that opportunity to reteach her, to make her truly his own at last, as she had never been in her previous life. Basically, he lied to her about her true origins and turned her against us all. But she was a confused creature of anger, discomfited in the use of her newfound telepathic powers, so that whenever any of the X-Men were around her, she projected that confusion, that anger, causing us to react in kind. Psylocke finishes off. Yes, it pained her to learn that although Nwaren had sent her on behalf of his patron, the Mandarin, to kill you, and Wolverine for foiling his plans, a reference to 257, in time she came to respect you all. How did you get all this information? Psylocke asks. The obvious question. They were her final thoughts. Kwannon died here in my arms. So Kwannon had a gift to give Psylocke, because she knew Psylocke would come, and so he kisses her here and says, she asked me to provide you some measure of peace by leaving me the imprinted telepathic energy she wielded and the means to take back all those memories which were Kwannon's from your troubled soul. And now, as I've been able to heal you, so will I ask you to bring on a final piece for myself. So he takes the blade from out her sheath, and he prepares to commit suicide. So he says the only way to accomplish that, to rekindle the love he had for her, is to join her in a better place than this. And remember, Matsuo Tsurayaba recently killed Wolverine's ex-fiancée, Mariko Yashida, and Psylocke could just let this guy kill himself, commit suicide out of honor. But she says no, she wants the katana back. And she argues there are other better ways to do that. She says, only if you want Kwannon to be remembered just as an instrument of death will he kill himself. Is that all she was to you, an assassin? And so he says, no, she was more than that. Much, much more. She was a dangerous smile when I took her picture, and a forgiving kiss when I showed it to her. She was love and hope. This is very Claremontian, this dialogue here from Tsurayaba. And I wonder, did Nicieza feel that he was under some kind of obligation to make good that retcon that he did in respect of Claremont's work? And is that maybe why Claremont is on his mind and seeping into the dialogue he gives the characters here? But Psylocke holds the blade up and says, then choose to honor her life, not her death. Matsuo, think of her that way. Tomorrow. So he does. He doesn't go through with it. And he leaves Kwannon's katana, his own, at her grave marker. And Psylocke walks away and says, I'm giving you a chance, Matsuo. Make something of it. Use it to create something better for yourself. It won't be an easy road to take, but if you succeed, if you find happiness, then you'll have served well to honor the memory of the woman who came to mean so much to both of us. And then this is Kwannon's grave marker here. Love that transcended body and soul. An appropriate epitaph for Kwannon. And then last page, back in Westchester 2 days later, and Betsy's at, what's the name of the lake here again? It's Breakstone Lake, Spootin Devil Cove, lost in thought, as she scans the deepest recesses of her mind, straining to see if by chance a vestige of Kwannon remains inside her soul, but she finds none. So that was Tsuruyaba's gift, to remove those memories of Kwannon's. And if she mourns that loss, she gives no sign, for with that loss comes the knowledge that she is Elizabeth Braddock in mind and yes, in body, and she throws Mojo's bionic eyes into the lake. So the past sinks away, eh? Says Warren as he offers her his hand. And she says regarding Kwannon, she challenged me and made me question my identity and the very nature of my soul. But you know what? I met that challenge and became a stronger, better person for it. And Archangel says, yes, you did, Bets, just much as I hate to admit it, like Apocalypse did for me. Makes us birds of a feather, huh? He says. It does. Perhaps then we can see how high we can fly together. So there they are, a new romantic relationship in the X-Men, Archangel and Psylocke. And next up, Gambit and Sabretooth. We find out what the mysterious past between Gambit and Sabretooth is in the next issue. And here in the letters page, there is an in memoriam box for Jack Kirby, who died of a heart attack in February 1994. So important that he's remembered here, being the co-creator with Stan Lee of the X-Men after all. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men number 32, which brings to an end the perhaps ill-conceived retcon that brought Kwannon Revanche into Psylocke's life. And this puts an end to it and reveals what really happened in issues 255 and 56 in respect of the body swap, as it turns out, rather than a body mutation for Psylocke in relation to her transformation into an Asian ninja warrior. If you liked the video, please like it on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.